The students are 20, they're in their early 20s, and they like to design things that are cool. You have to train them to be more humble and to realize that what they think is cool is not necessarily what's going to be useful to someone else, especially someone who's not in their age group. The way I do the training is I force them to do projects that involve people who are not like themselves. And they do these design projects, and then they have to test them on those people.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman.
Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help age in place. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we want to look at technology. Now that we're surrounded by it, it's nice to know there are academics and engineers exploring the intersection of aging and technology. Professionals in the field of aging are in the best position to recommend affordable technologies that will enable seniors to live in the least restrictive environment for as long as possible. An aging population with longer life expectancy, a shortage of physicians and nurses, a mobile population in which families are no longer living in close proximity to one another, all make the technological improvements that have occurred in recent years more valuable.
The creative people in technology are using what they learned to help older adults live better for longer and to help companies develop products that older adults actually want and need, whether it's using larger font on a web page or realizing that older people may need more time to learn new applications. Some of today's technology is designed with the older user in mind. And if the new product is of use for all ages, the market expands and more inventions come our way. Our guest today is Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, a University of San Francisco professor of computer science. He's co-author with Kate Finn of a book, Designing User Interfaces for an Aging Population. The book offers guidance for product engineers, designers, and students to create products and online services that can be easily used by older adults. Dr. Johnson, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you.
How do you design for older adults?
Well, one of the things that I want to emphasize is that Kate Finn and I don't really advocate designing specifically for older adults. Older adults are not a uniform group. So that makes it very hard to decide how to design for older adults if you're just trying to do that. So that's one reason that we don't advocate it. The second reason is that when you design products that are specifically for older adults tend not to want to use them because using such a product stigmatizes you as an older adult. It brands you as an older adult. And of course, no one wants to think of themselves as old. And so when you design a product specifically for older adults, many older adults will shun that product because they don't want to brand themselves as older adults. So, for example, there's a phone that was designed for older adults called the Jitterbug. And the Jitterbug phone is a simplified cell phone that is really aimed at older adults. It lets you make phone calls. It has big buttons on the front, and the big buttons say things like shop, email, things like that. And the trouble is, many older adults don't want to use that phone because it shows that they're an older adult who can't handle modern technology. So what we're after, what Kate Finn and I were really advocating in that book, is what's called universal design, which is removing barriers that block older adults from using technology rather than designing technology specifically for older adults.
So what are some of those barriers, and what are some of the challenges that some older adults may have?
Well, okay, so getting back to the barriers idea, I mean, one of the things that we think of, that we know of as a barrier, and there's an obvious barrier in cities, and this isn't having to do with specifically with technology, but we use it as an analogy, is curb cuts on roadways. So, for example, curb cuts were put in for a very specific reason, which is older adults in wheelchairs couldn't get around the city because they were blocked by the curbs. So laws were passed mandating that curb cuts be put into the curbs to allow old people in wheelchairs to be able to get around. So it's not only older adults, it's everyone in wheelchairs, but that's a relatively small segment of the population. So curb cuts were put in. San Francisco now has curb cuts everywhere. And the interesting thing is when you look at who uses curb cuts, it's actually 90 to 95% of the people who use curb cuts are not people in wheelchairs. There are people pushing strollers, people pulling roller bags, people pushing shopping carts, kids on skateboards, and all sorts of rolling devices. And so most of the people who benefited from curb cuts were not the people who curb cuts were designed for. So that's basically removing a barrier. And the nice thing about curb cuts is that they benefited everyone. And that's what we're looking for in digital technology, is removing barriers that get in the way of older adults, but that won't impede other people. So for example, font size. If you display font text on a screen, why put it in a 6-point font? It's not like 20-year-olds are asking for tiny fonts. They won't complain if the fonts are larger. And if the fonts are larger, then older adults can read it. Okay, and so that's one example. Making sure that audio alerts are at a frequency that older adults can hear, because many of us, including me, have lost our high frequency hearing, so that when a peep is a very high frequency, I can't hear it in many cases. And even if I can hear it, I can't localize it. I can't tell where it is. I know I lost my cell phone. I can hear it beeping, but I don't know where it is in my house. Okay, and so what you can do is you can lower the frequency of those alerts so that it comes into the range where most older adults can hear. And again, younger people are not going to complain that, oh, the frequency of that alert is too low. It bothers me. They're not going to complain about that. So you haven't taken away from younger adults' use of the phone by lowering the frequency of the. So that's just another example.
How do you teach that in your classroom? Do the students do workshops? Do they go out and ask people, what is it you need? How do you decide what to design for new people, for older people?
Well, first of all, the students are 20, they're in their early 20s, and they like to design things that are cool. And you have to train them to be more humble and to realize that what they think is cool is not necessarily what's going to be useful to someone else, especially someone who's not in their age group. And so you basically, the way I do the training is I force them to do projects that involve people who are not like themselves. And they do these design projects, and then they have to test them on those people. And what they discover is, oh, the design that I thought was really cool and really easy to use turns out not to be so easy to use by these people. What do I need to do? And then I tell them, you have to correct your design. And if you have to figure out how to correct your design so that those people can use the technology that you're developing.
So when we were doing some research for this interview, I talked to a lot of people, and I asked them, people who are considered older, and I asked them, oh, what bothers you about the new technology? And several people said, why are there no telephone numbers on websites? When I have a problem, there's no chat room, there's no phone number. And, I reminded them that Stephen Jobs said, oh, everything is intuitive. You just start using it and you'll figure out how to do it. Well, that's not enough for a lot of as non-digital natives. So is this going to be a problem until the next generation, or what can we do about that?
Well, let's see. So first of all, I don't really believe that this argument about digital natives versus digital immigrants is a good argument or a valid argument, because technology is constantly changing. And so at any given time, you have people who are used to the previous era's technology and not with the current technology. And that will always be true. So that today's children will grow up with digital technology and cell phones and internet, but they won't grow up with brain links and with quantum technology and with highly robotized environments where there are robots around us all the time. And their children will, and will wonder why their parents can't get with the program and understand how things work nowadays, right? And so I think that argument is off, that basically the argument is when today's older adults die off, then everyone will be comfortable with technology. That's just not true, because technology doesn't stand still.
What designs have been successful? What's new since you wrote your book that's been successful that you are proud of?
Well, I don't know if I can say I'm proud of these, because those are only things that would only be things that I had direct influence on. But the industry is getting better, and first of all, they're incorporating older adults into their usability testing, so that when they test products, they realize that they have to have some people who are over 60 or over 55 in their sample. Otherwise, they're not going to have a representative sample of their audience. So that's a good change that it's happened. We're starting to see some applications that are what I would call single page applications. That everything is there in front of you, and you don't have to go from one screen to another in order to get something done. Google Maps is a good example of that. Another good thing that's occurring in the industry is that as artificial intelligence becomes more incorporated into some of these applications, some of the interactions that you can have with a computer will be more like interacting with another person. Now, that can be kind of creepy at times, but it can also, if it's done well and done in a humble and not arrogant manner, it can make it so that people who are used to interacting with other people can interact with a computer, because the computer is acting more like a person.
I also wanted to ask you about self-driving cars. Do you think this is going to be an advantage for older adults?
Oh, definitely. It definitely is. I'm 70 years old, by the way, and so we recently replaced our car with one that has a lot of. It's not a self-driving car, but it has some safety features in it. So, for example, it has collision avoidance, and it has lane changing sensing, so that it can see if there's another car in the lane that I'm trying to change into, and the steering wheel will kick back at me if I try to steer into another car. And the car is constantly warning me that I'm coming up on another car too fast, and sometimes it will actually panic and slow down. Sometimes I think it's a little bit overreactive. I find myself talking to my car. I saw that car. Don't worry about it. I knew that it was. I had to stop. But as the cars get better at that and become more able to do more of the driving, that will be a benefit for older adults. Because people often are so proud of the fact that they can drive, and that gives them independence, and they can go around wherever they want to go. They don't want to give up driving, even if they have started to become unsafe. Some service companies that have older adults as a target audience, like, for example, Rhodes Scholar um, or let's see, the Grand Circle Travel, they know that people are going to have difficulty booking. And in fact, what we have observed on travel sites that are aimed at older adults is that older adults can generally find the information they need about the trip, but they will not and cannot book actually online. What they do is they get on the phone. So those companies just have to maintain call centers. And furthermore, those call centers have to be in the United States. They can't be in India because that would also create a problem for the customers.
Well, thank you very much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me on there.
Today on News You Can Use, we have a suggestion. Write that will already. It only takes a sudden trip to the emergency room or hearing that a friend has been there to make one feel vulnerable about the future. And while you're feeling vulnerable, it's a good time to think about writing a will. Never a task anyone looks forward to. It is nonetheless a part of acknowledging both that you're getting older and that you have acquired some things of worth. It's never too soon to write a will, and the younger and healthier you are when you finally sit down to do it, the clearer you'll be about your wishes, and the more likely your gifts will end up with the people you intended. If that's not enough of an incentive, think of it as helping your heirs avoid arguments, unnecessary legal fees, other costs, and bad feelings among them.
A will is simply a legal document that you can state who will be in charge of your estate after you're gone. This means your home, car, bank accounts, stocks, jewelry, artwork, and anything else of value that you've acquired over the years. It also can state who should be the guardian of your minor children, or perhaps an older relative that you've been taking care of. You can single out specific gifts like Maria gets the artwork, Paul gets the dog, Carol gets the pearls, or John gets the Jaguar. You should also name an executor for your will. This is the person you trust to execute what you have written.
If one dies before writing a will, there are a host of problems. A stranger will be appointed by the courts, and he or she will have to follow the law, not the wishes of the deceased. And unless specific heirs are named in a document, that third cousin you never met could inherit items you wanted to go to someone else. So don't put it off any longer. If you're reluctant to meet with a lawyer, the internet could be the next best thing. Search for sample wills or online estate planning. And while you're filling out the various forms, don't forget to designate an executor and to specify your wishes regarding health care and powers of attorney.
And finally, be sure that you sign whatever document you create and get a witness to sign it as well. And don't forget to let the important people in your life know where they can find a copy. It can't hurt to leave a copy with your lawyer as well.
It's never too soon to get started. Writing your will may force you to deal with your own mortality, but you'll certainly be thanked by your heirs.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks to our guest, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson of the University of San Francisco. You can learn more about Next Village SF at their website, nextvillagesf.org. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstedt is our engineer. And thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.